Yo, what's going on, Golden Gamers? Welcome back to yet another week of Radio Melee. They said we couldn't do it, but here we are doing it again. And
Crazy.
today, of course, joining us, as he always does, as he always holds it down, Toph, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Joining us, I was ready for you to say, as he always does, it's Zuppy. And I was like, damn,
He's here, man. He's always here in spirit, physically, however it happens. He's here, Zuppy. You know, the Canadian sensation, I think it's fair to say rising player. Maybe it's not. We'll get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, Canadian Fox, rising player, box user. So get your questions ready for that one. And all around, I think it's good to bring on players that are rising to get that different perspective because we have on a lot of people that often are more established later in the journey. Let's figure out what the mindset is for like the young rising blood. So Zuppy, welcome to the show. How you feeling today, man?
Feeling great. Thank you guys for having me on here. Excited to talk about stuff. I heard like the comment question last week was like pretty interesting, so
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a good time. And, but right before we get to that and make sure you are
Yeah.
thinking about your own community voice, Toph, I feel like there was something interesting that you've been working on lately and connects you with Zuppy. And so I don't know if there's something you wanted to get into that now.
I do. And this is a big part of the reason we got Zuppy on today. First of all, for people who are tuning in, you guys might want to be on the lookout. I just figured we'd plug the GG Melee YouTube channel because we've got a video that we actually recorded with Zuppy yesterday, some gameplay footage of us bringing back an old classic, an old favorite I'm just going to spoil it, Tenkaichi.
Oh,
hey. So we got Zuppy on the channel. We played Tenkaichi on the channel. It's probably not up yet if you're watching right now, but the video will probably be up like next week or week after, whenever it goes up.
When the editors get done with it.
More Zuppy. But before I get into the stuff I want to talk about, I'm going to give my intro to Zuppy for people who might not know who he is and why he's such a special player. There I was. Get on my level 2022. It was crazy. It was Friday. So Friday, there's not a ton going on. Well, there is. There's doubles. And there's a lot of side events, in particular crews. Singles hasn't started yet, but I figured since I didn't have a ton of commentary to do on Friday, I would enter the 5v5 crew tournament. And Big Zupp puts out this tweet a couple weeks leading up to the event. He's like, yo, who's trying to run it? Let's put together a winning team. And I just replied, I was like, yo, I'm down. And I think it was me, Zuppy, I think Swooper got it. It was basically the first 5 people that replied. It was like me, Zuppy, like Swooper was in there. We had 2 Saint, and who else was there? It was Mateo, our Canadian rep. You gotta have a man on the inside because it's getting level. So we had, I guess Zuppy's Canadian too. So we had 2 Canadians, 2 New Yorkers, and little old me. And TLDR, man, okay, so Team UK, they came with the heat. It was literally the top 5 players from the UK. All number 1 through number 5. So it was Frenzy, Prof, they had Kingu, they had frickin' Max, and they had someone else who's pretty good. Who was it?
Frenzy?
I said Kingu. I said Frenzy.
Fatino.
Oh, can't forget Fatino. A crowd favorite. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to mince words here. They had us by the balls. Well, they're British, so they had us by the bollocks, really. So they have us by the bollocks. And I'm not going to lie. Some of our counter picks, they didn't really work out. And, like we sent Super in against Frenzy, and we're like, man, a UK Falco is not going to know what to do against a top-level Samus because they don't have Samuses like that over there. And Frenzy's playing out of his mind against Swooper, and then someone comes over, and this guy's like, why did you send Swooper in against Frenzy? Frenzy's roommate has been a Samus player for the last 5 years. And we're like, no, that's bad. So, all this stuff. And basically it comes down to Zuppy versus Zuppy's got to take 9 stocks with the crew battle, right? Zuppy cleans up. Who'd you come in on?
I played versus Frenzy's 1 stock, and then he took 2 stocks off me. And then I played Tino after that.
Yeah, you played Tino. You got to realize Zuppies are accurate because Zuppy is he's the secret weapon that makes the whole crew. You know what I mean? He's the glue. He's the captain. He's the anchor. All that good stuff. He cleans up Frenzy. They send him Fat Tino, and he whoops Fat Tino. It's crazy. He loses 1 stock, 2 stocks maybe. I don't know. He didn't lose very many. And then freaking, but he's gone through a lot of players at this point. He already taken out Frenzy and Fatino. So Zuppy's down to like 1 stock. Basically, to win the crew battle, he would need to 4-stock Professor Pro. And listen, I've seen a lot of crew battles in my day. Every time this happens, where it's like one guy with 1 stock versus, if they have to make a 4-stock, I've never seen it happen. I've seen Mango have to make this comeback. I've seen this situation before, and the person with 1 stock, you never actually get the 4-stock, right? But the first thing that happens, man, I swear to God, because the UK guys are getting loud, they're doing their little UK chants. And the first thing that happens, Zuppy just clean 0-desk Professor Pro, and now it's 1 stock to 3. And I swear to God, they got quiet for like a fucking second, man. They're like, oh shit, it might happen. And we started getting rowdy. Like, we're like, bro, Zuppy's the best player in the world. He's literally gonna 4-stock Professor Pro. Takes another stock, but I don't know. And then it's too much. And okay, couldn't close it out, unfortunately. But man, I swear to God, there was like a good minute where I was like, wait, Zuppy is the best player on the planet.
There's a glimpse.
He's actually gonna bring this crew battle home. So I just want to tell this story to kind of convince everyone here that Zuppy he's that good. And I have an utmost amount of respect for pretty much almost carrying us to all the way to victory in the grand finals of that cruise tournament. How did you feel, Zuppy, when that happened?
Dude, I feel like if I just took 1 stock off Frenzy without losing any, I could have done it, because I only lost 1 to Tino. Like 3 to 4 versus Professor Pro, like kind of doable.
Kind of doable, yeah.
Frenzy messed me up, so is what it is.
Frenzy took like 2.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Hard after that point, yeah.
Yeah, he had 2 stocks against Fatino and Prof, which is just a monster comeback to try to make. But I think a good reason to bring Zuppy on this particular week, besides the fact that we've got a Tenkaichi episode waiting in the wings for you guys, is that I very recently started practicing on the box. I got an LBX from my good buddies at Junk Food Arcade, which is a really, I mean, they've been around the FGC for a while, but they're dipping their toes into Smash. They, without even asking, they did this for me. This is crazy. So I have the custom Golden Guardians Junk Food LBX, which is crazy. Goes super hard. And it is a foam bottom, by the way, if you're wondering what this material is. It's like foam, so it grips your lap, so it's just stable in my lap the whole time. It's really nice. What's not really nice is that PP, I'm sure you've heard, this is one of the talks, this is one of the things people bring up, talking about Z jumping, boxes and stuff. There's a bit of an adjustment period when you try to switch to the box. Right. And I can't do Nathan's hot dogs on this thing. I have been practicing for 3 or 4 days, and I'm putting techniques together. I can do drill shine, like wave dash forward, dash JC up smash, let's say. I learned how to do that. It's fairly complicated. But what they don't tell you, well, they do tell you this, but I think it gets brushed under the rug a little bit, is that, man, switching to box for Smash is really difficult. It's really hard. And I know this is a transition that Zuppy made, because you used to play on controller, correct, Zuppy?
Yeah, I did from 2015 to midway through 2019, yeah.
2015 is when you started?
Yeah, 2015, first tournament.
Dang. Yeah, and so, but you decided you were going to you did the full switch, and you got to the point where you actually got better. You're better now, I think, than you ever were on a controller, so, yeah. And you're probably one of the only people that I can confidently say that about. I feel like even somebody like Hacks, right? There's a few. Okay, maybe Tyler.
Tyler Swift.
Or Swift, I guess. Pipsqueak. Yeah. So there's not too many people. I mean, I bring up Hacks because, Hacks was somebody who I think got very good, but was already very good on a controller. So I think it's unique to have the perspective of somebody who actually got better on the box than they were, and got better results than they were getting on controller. But I wanted to pick your brain. And I think this is something that a lot of people are going to have questions about, because there's a whole community. And PP, I think this is what's really cool. When I started practicing on the box on stream, I had people coming out of the woodwork that were in my chat who I'd never seen before. And they had like a wealth of knowledge, DIY types, and people with opinions about, like, you know, I would say, like, okay, are people L canceling with L or R or Z? What do people do? Or soft R, you know, there's a light shield button. And people are like, oh, you do this because this, and this. You know, you L cancel with Z. Because, and I was like, oh, like people, there's like a whole wealth of, there's a little community. It's like a sub community of Melee of box players who are like helping each other out and putting these drills together and guides together. And so I think a lot of people might be interested in that sort of thing. I know controllers are always a hot topic. So if y'all got questions about switching to box, questions about, you know, what the meta, you know, might be like in a couple years, questions about is it worth it? You know, questions about ergonomics, anything that might be on your little mind. Make sure you use !Radio Melee today. Get in here. We got Zeke running the program behind the scenes in the Discord, which means you can ask any question you want to Zuppy. You could also ask about, I don't know, Canada. You know, Canada, they got bag milk. That's crazy. So you can ask about that. And Zeke's going to drag you in.
Why not?
And you don't drink that?
It's inconvenient.
Is
That's
it?
how I feel about it.
Like,
can't you access it faster? Because you'd have to like screw a top off the.
Slower.
And you just open. How does the bag?
You have to find your scissors or like a knife or something. The hole too big. Like, I haven't done that in a very long time.
Yeah.
Do they sell cartons too?
Yeah,
they do.
I don't know why that's like a huge stereotype. Like, I feel like I don't know people who do that. Like, maybe when I was younger, people did.
But you do keep a moose in your backyard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as long as that's
that's
fine.
Really show it right now, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Let's hope it doesn't break through the wall. But you know, I mean, fun to ride, very friendly, contrary to popular belief. I think you guys are doing great things up there.
Well, it's like a guard moose, you know.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very fair.
Man, but yeah, you can get in here. !Radio Melee. Talk to us. Anything you want to ask us. We got people like Mob Money. I see Mob Money in the chat. I see Sick in the chat right now. And if any of you guys want to talk to us live on air, very easy to do so. !Radio Melee. Get in here. Give us your hot takes. Anything you want to say.
Not yet, Zeke.
Not yet, Zeke. Zeke's working on it.
I'm pushing back.
Listen, before we get to any of that stuff, there's one thing we got to do, and that's we got to respond to the community voice questions from last week.
So we
did have Weed on. Weed asked some hard-hitting questions to the community out there on the YouTube side of things. Let's take a look at what some of you guys were saying about our community voice question for last week. What was Weed's question, PP? Do you remember?
No.
Me neither.
Would you like to tell us what it was while we're reading this?
Oh, yeah. Right. I remember now. It was like, wait.
No. Help,
no,
Quinn.
I don't remember. What was the question? Where's Quinn?
If Melee benefits from top 100 rankings. Got it. So, yeah, but it almost kind of looks like from this first person, they're saying the only way we can be okay with no top 50 or top 100, so it's like whether it's okay to do top 50 or 100 or anything like that, is if there's an official circuit existing, is if all of our players can fully care about the official circuit. I know several players aren't too thrilled about either circuit happening right now that much, which I think is fair, compared to something like Capcom Pro Tour where all of the Warriors really come out and give it their all. Yeah, I do kind of feel like that was kind of my feeling, is that basically if you have standings that everyone cares about and the points and everything like that for a circuit, then that's all that matters. Although that might, depending on how it goes, you know, from my understanding, there could be issues with attendance, at least for the highest level players in that too. I've heard about that with tennis. So I don't know if it solves that issue, but you know what? I think we'll keep trying to figure that one out and maybe let different styles fall where they may.
By the way, the writer here is Fizz WMG. I wonder if that W stands for wiggle.
I was wondering. Yeah, that's a good point. We might have a covert operator in here swaying the opinions on rankings because they know they're going to be ranked. Very smart.
Yeah. Phil714 CV agrees with some of the other commenters. Ranking is just too ingrained in the culture. I do think 100 is too much. Wow. Like Toast said, everything can shift so fast below 50 depending on a single result. Maybe just do 50 instead. Many other esports has a World Cup type of format where there's this big tournament to decide the final ranking, a bit like SWT. I feel like that's a great way to do it. You can't really argue with the results. It's like a panel algorithm when you can argue on what's valued head to head. Assuming H2D means head to head and not head to part of the body that starts with D. Right. Winning, etc. But these tournaments are always supported by the developer. Maybe this is what the Nintendo circuit could be if it succeeded. I mean, yeah, it's. I would hope it's more than one tournament. I feel like one tournament to decide a ranking is a bit much because I mean, not everyone's gonna go. Like, what if you skip the tournament, then you're just not ranked, But
yeah, like what if
also,
what if you get COVID, or what if you get
right,
visa issued, or
or you just do bad, right? If you
family
do bad at
issues
the
come
one
up, yeah,
tournament,
or yeah, you just don't perform great. So I mean,
Smart.
not being able to argue with the results, I'd love to live in that world, but I don't think World Cup world is that world either. I think especially in Melee, we are always going to argue. We love doing that. Twitter.com, everybody. Adamin, with our last answer coming in here. I think a traditional top 100 is too ingrained in the Melee scene. So many top players' goals are being ranked 1. So I don't really see a future where 1 goes away and people don't wish there was 1 back. Zuppy, I actually think, you said, I remember we talked before the show, you kind of wanted to weigh in on this a little bit. This kind of gets me thinking, how do you feel about there being a top 100 versus a top 50? Was it an important goal to you? Is it related to any of your goals now, rising on the ranks? What do you think, man?
Yeah, I definitely like the current system we kind of have going of
Mhm.
like I think the summer top 50 is like a good thing
Okay.
and top 100 for end of year because I think there's like more results and data points for like the end of year, but
Yeah.
it's like ends up being like more clear who the top 50 players are anyways. Even then some people that like, got on it like I know like Professor Pro is like really good for example, but he kind of just went to like a few tournaments in the US and then
Yeah, it's
and
just
like
expensive
got
to travel, right?
yeah, and then like he can't really get ranked as easily because like he's from Europe and it's like
Mhm.
we don't really know like what the value of like beating Frenzy is because like Melee is definitely like a North American game. And
Mhm.
so like I think overall it's like a good thing, but it's definitely like catered towards like a lot of American players because I remember like Canada like back in the day like Moki was like ridiculously good in like um 2017, but he got ranked like 90 something. But it's just like you have to beat like Ed or like Kirby Kaze, who are like super high ranked players, or you have to travel if
Yeah.
you want to get
Yeah.
ranked. And
Yeah.
like I definitely had that problem coming up. Same thing with like Soon Say. It's like if I want to like rise the ranks at all, I have to beat Moki or Ed, who are like
Yeah.
top
That's
10 and
tough.
top 15 now. So I
That's
pretty much
tough.
just have to travel, and then
Mhm.
everyone I'm ranked above like doesn't necessarily like benefit me like rankings wise. So pretty much
But
just
might
have
not
to travel.
necessarily hurt you either if you're playing in
Yeah.
locals from what I understand. So that's nice. We've learned
Yeah.
that.
So
Um
I think it's a good thing overall.
yeah, quick follow-up. What's your goal rank right now?
Goal rank, I wanted top 30 for the
Mhm.
summer one. I got ranked 41, so not too thrilled about that, but
Uh-huh.
it's
Right.
dope to be on it in general.
Yeah.
I think top 25 by end of year would be sick, but I
Ooh.
don't know how much I'm going to travel. I think I'm going to Riptide and Big House, so we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, you guys heard it. We can check back in on Zuppy's progress end of year.
That's right.
4 months to go. That being said, I think we are ready to bring in our first caller. I do not know how Zeke is going to know to do that in the mic check channel, so I might do it.
Oh man,
All right, I did it. Uh, Hello, Kessig. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling in
Kessig.
from, and what's your question for us today?
Thank you so much. It's Kessig. I'm back. Uh, I'm calling in from Boston. It's really, really humid here.
Oh, good luck.
Um,
Oh no.
yeah. It'll clear up before shine. Don't worry.
Nice.
And my question is: back in 2021, the matchup triangle of Marth beating Fox, Fox beating Sheik, and Sheik beating Marth was a big topic of discussion. You saw players like Cody and Leffen experimenting with Sheik as a potential counterpick. Um, Mango won Summit 11, and people began to think more and more about maybe Fox going even with her beating Marth. I remember Cody was talking about that recently on his stream. And additionally, Sheik players had Zane's number at recent tournaments, and I think Zane lost 6 sets against Sheik in a row. And then finally, Jmook beat Pluck and Cody's Foxes. And so my question is, what happened to this triangle? What does beats in a matchup perspective even mean? And how deep are the matchups in Melee?
Right. Well, I
It's
think
a pretty good question.
it's a good question, and then who better to answer that than our rising star Fox main Zuppy? I mean, talking about how you see matchups, how you see the top level and how you see maybe the Fox and Marth versus Fox matchups have changed recently.
Okay. Yeah, so I think Fox Sheik has changed the most out of like those matchups,
Hmm.
like especially with the rise of Jmook. And I feel like
What
that match
changed?
I think like Jmook will like hold down and like reversal grab you and then like just essentially wobble your stock with tech chasing.
Okay, so Sheiks before just didn't. I knew they couldn't. A lot of them didn't tech chase as well. But it sounds like he holds down in more spots and he's better at it than other Sheiks. He's better at converting off that as well.
Yeah, he has like by far the best like defensive game, and then as well as like at 24%, like Sheiks are starting to like use F tilt a lot more, and then
On the tech chase.
that they get like the knockdown from the tech chase, and
Hmm.
then um it's like another way for them to like kill you off a knockdown rather than just like getting a shield grab or something like that. And same with like their reversals off like crouch cancel, so they just have like more ways to like do a lot of damage to Fox. Like I feel like that matchup is like a lot of it doesn't depend on how well the Fox is playing, and it depends on how well the Sheik's playing. Like if I get like 4 wake up shines a match, I will like literally never lose that matchup. But if the Sheik's like tech chasing really good and playing really well like defensively by like naring out of up throw and like knowing their percents on like when they can wiggle out before like I up throw them the platform and they'll wiggle out instead of like get tech chase stuff like that. Like little defensive things that make it kind of like an unreactable mix up rather than like I just like up throw nair, turn around up tilt you, and like edge guard you after or something.
And it almost sounds like you're saying maybe we don't know how good other Sheiks might get at tech chasing. Like how much of that can be improved easily. I know Spark did a video on it recently, but it sounds hard. But
Yeah.
they can certainly get better at holding down, and they can certainly wiggle out more out of up throw and things like that. So some of what Jmook's doing is influencing other Sheiks, so that's affecting the matchup overall. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. I also think Crudo's gotten a lot better recently
Mm,
too.
Definitely.
yeah, he
Like
has.
he feels like pretty much just like the perfect Sheik other than tech chasing. Like he's
Hmm.
still good at it,
Yeah.
but like it's not like the same aura of like I just got grabbed by Jmook or just Jason or Foxy Grandpa or whoever. Like
Yeah.
those
Face
guys like
roll
actually
when
can
he's
face
around.
roll, yeah. I've never played him, so I've never experienced that, but I've definitely seen
Mm-hmm.
it. But
Yeah.
just I think like the overall like defensive game of like Sheik's getting better at like escaping Fox combos will like make the matchup harder, but I still think Fox wins, but it definitely gets harder and the matchup gets harder to practice when people like don't do like certain defensive options. Like when I can just get
Yes.
away from like doing like up throw, short hop up air, and then like the Sheik doesn't smash you out, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I get my combo.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe very strong Fox favor before, but maybe what are you thinking? Like slight now or something?
Uh, I'd say like I feel 55-45
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
like a good number because I think it's hard for Sheik to play like 10 out of 10 amazing consistently versus Fox, and then I also feel like FD and Stadium are just really strong counter
Tough
picks.
counter
And
picks, and the Sheik has
Yeah,
to
that's
be
true.
on. If the Sheik is on, if the Sheik is hitting her stuff, it almost sounds like it goes 50-50 the way
Yeah.
you talked
yeah,
about it.
um,
There's this dynamic, I think, if I can interject, and I think it's funny that Keswick brings up that like the triangle, like the RPS between Fox Sheik and Marth, because I kind of feel at the end of the day, like all three of these matchups, to a certain degree, like if both sides are playing really, really good, they do kind of get closer to even. Like
yeah,
these matchups are almost like worse at lower level. Like you talk
Yeah.
about like if you were to like side bet like a 6 month Marth versus a 6 month Sheik,
Oh, Sheik every
you're gonna
day of
take
the
the Sheik
week.
every time, right?
Every day of the week.
Exactly. But like, at the highest level, like, the Marth could get it done. Like there's like
Yeah.
if you're really tight with like keeping the Sheik out and like enforcing your neutral and stuff. And it kind of goes that way for all these matchups. Like I kind of feel like all of them are kind of like the Fox Sheik. They have that same dynamic where it's just like it's harder for one side. Maybe it's not worse at the end of the day at like the maximized level, but there's a lot of stuff you have to do that if you're not hitting that stuff, if you're even a little bit off, like even if Zuppy said like if you're not good at smash dying out of Fox's like up airs at low percent off up throws, like that just kind of it's like a non-starter for the matchup, you know, and then you can't even fight, you know, Fox Marth, you know, it's kind of the same way where like, you know, you're going to explode when the Marth grabs you. So you better be like, you know, mixing up your approaches well enough and like playing the ground game and like abusing like the things that you have on Marth. Like you need to be maximizing that and you need to be maximizing your pressure against him. And when you get behind his shield, you got to make the most out of those opportunities. Because if you don't, then you're just going to get out numbers game. Marth's just going to hit harder than you. You're going to lose your stocks faster.
Zuppy, so I mean, Marth Fox, the political matchup. I'm going to do my best not to talk about it if I can, but you will because we brought you on the show, so you have to deal with it. Too bad. So Fox Marth, what do you think about it? How do you think that one's changed?
I think like Marth started doing more forward throw stuff to counteract like up throw slide off. Like I feel like you used to be able to get away with just like doing slide off DI on Marth's like up air or up tilt combos. That was really useful. I think Marth's got better at like smash DI. They also like mix out if they like will jump out or just regular fall out of up throw, which I think can like make things confusing. So I've seen like IBW popularize like doing like up throw short hop up air to like get under Marth like swinging, and now like Marth will start like double jumping out instead. What else has changed in that matchup? People just like hit way harder of like tech chases. There's like a few new tricks Fox has, like Kalindi made this like shine stall and then you like side B sweet spot and it's better than double jump sweet spot around like Marth doing like down throw down tilt, like it becomes like a 2-frame window instead of like a 1-frame, which can help. I feel like the matchup's probably like even. FD's annoying.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like it's like I feel like if like this was like Sheik Fox, I feel like Fox in the Fox Marth matchup is definitely the Sheik.
Okay.
It's like it's a lot more effort for the Fox to do it, but like if you can like do everything, then you know it's probably even, close to even, maybe winning.
Probably even, but maybe in practice, Marth has slight advantage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like even things like I think like Marth Killer 3.0, where you like you waveland from the ledge like straight down, and you have to like get it like on this like exact pixel, otherwise the Marth Killer like won't send, or you'll just SD from your waveland. Like I think that could be like a really useful tech, but it's hard to hit in tournament. The pressure's on.
Yeah.
And then my least favorite move is Marth counter, because I hate trying to tech that.
It's a hard move to tech.
Oh man.
I pick my up B spot really well, and if I don't sweet spot, I die. And that like runoff counter thing Logan does, I don't think I've ever recovered versus that.
It shouldn't be good, but it like does seem to work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, it's really funny.
Obnoxious.
Dude, when I played Marth casually like 10 years ago, I would do that. And I felt like as I was doing it, I was like, you know, this is really cheesy and you know, it's only working because I'm playing my dog shit Marth against, you know, some other guy who's not a top player, obviously. And this was back in the day, like 2010 or whatever. And I was like, you know, if high level play, people are just gonna tech this every time. But whatever, I'm not a Marth man, I'll just keep going for it. And then fast forward to like 2020, 2021, and I watched Logan doing it, and it's just why people don't tech it. And I'm like, I guess it's just pretty good. I don't know. Maybe if you play Logan enough, you get used to it. I feel like Logan's good about not doing it every single time to where it's predictable, but oh my god, I know exactly what you mean.
You have to like just focus only on that, and then if they down tilt or like forward smash or something, then you just
down air.
Don't tech that.
Yep.
So
yep.
It's just it feels bad to get hit by. It's not fun.
Yeah, it does. It does. So funny. Man. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, Essig, I think the triangle, I think it's still there. I think that at the end of the day, like there's, I think Leffen, certainly, I don't think Leffen needs to go. For example, I don't think he should go back to Fox for Marth. I think he's proven that his Sheik is just so consistent at that matchup. Like you should keep running it. But I do think that as people get better and better, those matchups, and we've even seen this a couple years ago. But I think that like when Zane first started beating Plup, for example. But I do think that it's just going to be harder for the one side. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a end all be all. It just kind of puts the onus on the the Sheik against Fox, or the Fox against Marth, or the Marth against Sheik. It puts the onus on that side to like work harder basically and like play better.
Yeah,
But,
and
yeah.
it's interesting because the way we've kind of talked about it is it was more of a counter, and now it sounds more like it's kind of tough, but it's
Yeah.
doable. So it's not maybe a triangle of aggravation rather than a triangle of counters now.
Of aggravation. It can be aggravating. That's for goddamn sure. That's for super sure.
I remember Null did a tier list a while back, where the top 6 characters were in the, I think, 55-45 is unwinnable tier.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah, hey, and you know what? Shout outs to that guy. He's holding it down in content and in the game.
Top 25.
Yes, sir. But hey, thank you so much, Kessig, for calling in. Great question, good discussion. You got any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, I have 2. The first is Zeke, who is my personal favorite Golden Guardian.
Very understandable. Love Zeke.
Second is the Wristwatch Revival YouTube channel. It's a guy named Marshall who fixes old wristwatches and makes them new. It's super interesting. You get to look into the inside of a watch. It's like a really nice camera setup. It talks about little motions and gears and whatnot. It's a super interesting way to like watch someone explore a hobby. Check them out. YouTube Wristwatch Revival.
Wristwatch Revival. It's a unique shout out today. I like that. Maybe I'll have to check them out later. Thanks for coming on the program, Kessig.
Have a nice day.
Till next time.
See you later.
See ya. All right. Let's go ahead and get our next caller in. Boy, I'm managing this Discord today. Look at me go, moving people around.
Nice, dude.
All right,
If only his favorite Golden Guardian was able to.
Zeke's hard vibing in mic check. He's having a party in there. Anyway, Ethos,
it's fine.
Welcome to the show. What's going on, man? What's your question for us today?
All right. I was gonna ask. So Blake, as a box player yourself, how do you feel about the current controller discourses with boxes, fobs, and goom waves, and etc.? And should there be a standardization? And if so, what are your ideas for it?
Great question.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I knew this was gonna get asked. So I actually have like a lot of controller words muted on my Twitter because
Smart.
It's just so obnoxious and so annoying.
First of all, how do you even mute control? Like, what are the words that you would mute? Because you can't just mute
box. You can mute box.
Can you?
Box,
what if like
it's worth it.
F1, frame 1.
Yeah. Okay. Someone that, because aren't you scared that Kalindi comes out and Kalindi says, "Oh man, I got a new technique that like surefire, like this is gonna carry your opponent every time, and you have to do such and such on frame 1, and you're never gonna see it because you muted the phrase frame 1." And now there's this crazy technique you don't know how to do that everyone knows how to do because you muted
Don't worry. People will tell him, hey, are you doing this thing?
People will tell me.
It was on the Twitter.
All right, that's fair. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Carry on. Carry on.
I might have unmuted it. I had it muted for a while because it was like really bad a while ago. I think like there's like a lot of like weird like stigma against like box players because I feel like there's definitely advantages to using the box, and I also feel like people don't care if controllers have like even better advantages. Like I know like Fox players that like would get a Goom Wave and like didn't have dash back out of crouch at all in their gameplay, and then like that's all they do, and it's just like, but it's like hard on the box. So like, and some box players think it's easy. I don't think it's that easy. It's like consistent, which is nice. So you can definitely practice it and get good at it. So like, I'm not complaining like too hard.
Yeah.
There's like other things like that I think there's like big misconceptions about. Like I think people think Firefox angles are like a lot better on the box, and I think it might depend on matchups. Like I remember
interesting.
Slug was like, yeah, I think box angles are better, but like ice climbers don't really have a way to hit like Firefoxes, like the startup. They kind of have to like edge guard. So if you just like up B, snap the ledge, I feel like that's harder for that character to deal with because like grabbing the ledge is kind of annoying, and then just due to Nana, and as well as like trying to hit the Firefox initial part. But I think a notch controller is definitely better because you have more angles, but
Yeah.
some people think like having like I don't know, it's like 50 or something like that angles, but it works the same every time. It's better.
Right. It's only I think it's 32.
I don't know the number.
If I'm not mistaken. Maybe there might be more with the C stick. There might be more with the C stick.
Yeah, the C stick angles.
But people don't realize that. Yeah, the perfect wave dash notch angle that is pretty. I mean, even before I got notches on my controller, I was able to hit that angle at least somewhat reliably. Just with a normal, like a normal, like you can just do that on a controller, but like that angle is inaccessible to you if you play on a box. Like the perfect and like to perfectly sweet spot the ledge. Like if the stage is here and you're here and you just go slightly down to grab the ledge, like slightly down, like that angle you don't have on box. So there's actually a lot of angles that you just can't do that can be very tricky. And I think that is one of the big misconceptions, certainly.
Like the wave dash angle thing, like wave shining Sheik is like a lot harder, I find, because you can't go as far. Like your degree is like 30.4, I believe is the max one on box, and the max you can get on controller is like 16.4. So like that's a pretty drastic jump of wave dash angles. So like if they smash the eye of your shine like pretty far, you're gonna need to like JC shine or just like run up grab or something. Because,
wow, you can't even walk. You can't even just hustle over there. I thought you could go for like a nice walk and you could
it kind of depends because like it depends where you start the shine. Like if you get a running shine, you could like definitely walk, but if you're not that close on the initial shine, like sometimes you're just like
if you want to repeatedly wave shine them,
like
across the
edge
stage
guard into down smash or whatever.
Oh man,
that can be like sometimes annoying.
Yeah, I could see that. Or you have to go for drill or something.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, I think one that Forrest brought up a while back, the artist formerly known as Mr. L, was just not having analog drift. Maybe this is less important for Fox, but I know Forrest was talking about this as a box Marth. With the controller, you can drift all kinds of little subtle ways as you're coming down, but with the box, yeah, I don't know how impactful you think that is to kind of only have a certain number of drifts.
I just full drift because I play Fox, but I think like it's kind of weird like recovering with Falcon, for example, because like I feel like I would like slightly like tilt the stick, but like there's modifiers and stuff that you can do to like get like less drift, but I feel like that's so unintuitive that like maybe it's better long term, but I feel like the learning curve for things like that is like absurd.
It's steep, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's something.
Are another thing too. Like, and the advantage. Like, I think Sheik's up B is just like a disaster on the controller because you have to like the buttons are all in like different places and like you have to like consistently move it. Whereas like the Firefox angle, it's like okay, you up B, you wait like 40 frames or whatever, and then you like punch the angle code and then you take off, and then you're like okay, cool. But Sheik, you have to like consistently do that and like
you gotta drift into it and then like drift and then you gotta hit your exact and it's fast.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to play Sheik more, but I'm just like I'm not learning this. So
this is something that Josh Man mentioned to me as well, is like both playing new characters yourself and also playing new matchups. And how, learning the up throw up air timings and, the inputs basically to up throw up or even just different characters in the cast. Like you said, wave shining characters that go further. Like there's certain things that are actually quite annoying to pick up on box where like you can get matchupped pretty hard as a new box user. Did you have this experience when you were getting good? Because I know, okay, so you've been playing the box for how long? You switched to it about a year and a half ago?
August 2019.
August 2019. Oh, so over 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
And it took you, I remember Nunn was saying he felt like it took you like a year and a half to get to where you were actually beating people you weren't beating on the controller.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
It's faster.
It was faster. I know some
Okay.
people got like good on it like ridiculously fast. Like,
How do they
I
do
think
that?
Swift like was playing like 6 hours a day and got good on it within like a month or something. But that's
Wow.
also Pikachu, so I don't know like how different the experience for that
Right.
character is versus Fox.
Pipsqueak did not take that long.
Pipsqueak didn't take long either, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I started in August and I got like 2019 and then I got like my first win that I didn't have on controller in like January 2020. I wouldn't say I was better. Maybe I was better at like the Marth matchup or something like that, but
Yeah.
better overall I probably wouldn't say I was, but and then I was like kind of finally starting to get like back to where I was and then COVID happened and then
Okay.
I was just like solo practicing a bunch hoping like tournaments would come back in like 3 months for whatever reason, and then rollback came out. I was like sick, and then
My impression from the outside looking in, I guess less on the outside these days, and more, certainly getting more in the sauce myself, is that there's a lot of things people don't realize, and so people I think say certain things. This was a big part of the reason I want to learn box myself. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to switch to it forever. I don't know if that's in my long-term plan. But I like to think that by experiencing it myself and kind of going through the practice process and learning how to do some of these techniques and reaching the point where I can fight people and feel comfortable, like I'm actually playing Melee, I want to be able to chime in on the discussion and have a more educated point of view than maybe somebody else who's kind of just trying to parse through top player opinions or whatever,
yeah.
Do you get this sense a lot? Do you read people like what they say on the internet? Coming back to Todd's question with opinions on the controller discourse, do you feel like a lot of people don't know what they're talking about, or how does it make you feel when you kind of?
Yeah,
Granted, you've muted a
people.
lot of the phrases, but
I think a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. Because either they like haven't used the controller before, or um, they only argue for like one way, where it's just like, oh, well, this, and this is better, and then it's just like, okay, yeah. Um, I mean that's fair, but you refuse to consider other things. Because I do think there's inherent advantages to the controller. Like I'm not gonna pretend like that doesn't exist. Like, um, I think for example, like some matchups, like if Marth or Pikachu's using the box and you're playing Fox and you're trying to up throw up them, like that becomes significantly harder if they're on like the box controller. Um, I know a lot of people have like issue with like the travel time of like dashing right or left and like it's just a button rather than like you have to move the stick there. I feel like that definitely makes sense and I feel like that's like definitely valid, but I also don't really know how you like combat that sort of issue.
right,
Because I feel like it's very like arbitrary and not like a concrete thing rather than like I don't know, like it's like oh this wave dash goes this far, this SDI goes this far. I feel like it's a lot simpler to be like okay this is and isn't okay. I know like the Smash box has like your own way to like code like coordinates or something like that. So not
right.
really
You can
sure.
map anything you want to any button. You can change the angles.
I've seen Peach like ledge dash on there, and that seems
Yeah,
like a little terrifying. I don't want
yeah.
Mod or someone of that caliber playing on that. That does not sound fun.
Yeah.
Um,
And you actually can hit those perfect wave dashes. Of course, you can make them.
yeah.
Yeah, you can change your angles basically.
I know the frame one doesn't have like pivot or SDI nerfs the same way the box does. So I think it's best as a community if we decide like, okay, this controller needs these nerfs, or the box should not have these nerfs as well, because it doesn't really make sense for like virtually like identical style controllers
Yeah,
to have
to have
different nerfs.
discrepancies like that, right? I think
Because
that was a big thing that like even the fighting game community went through at first, because when hitboxes first came out, there was this like really absurdly powerful technique where you could hold left and right on a hitbox, right? So you could hold both back and forward at the same time. And in fighting games, you block by holding back, right? And so by holding forward and back on the controller, I know in the first iteration of hitboxes, button stall controllers, you could block both directions at once by holding forward and back. And so if someone tried to cross you up, you would just block in both directions. So you couldn't get opened up that way. And, you know, instead of outright banning the controller, people said, okay, boxes need to implement this. You call it a nerf, right? Because it's that's basically what it is, which is like SOCD. They call it SOCD cleaning, or which is like same. What is it? Or SOCD stands for simultaneous opposing cardinal directions. So basically left and right, right? And that was something that the community pretty quickly was like, no, this is something that needs to exist because it is important in fighting games that you should have to choose which way you're blocking. That's something you can't do. You can't hold a fight stick in two different directions at the same time. It's not physically possible. And so I do kind of think there is a precedent, and I think you're totally right. I think that we should decide what precedents we want to set. And I think we're moving in that direction, albeit it feels like it's slowly. I think there's certain things we've enforced or come to enforce. And I think that maybe you're right. I mean, maybe with regards to like a Laud or somebody like that, I feel like if Laud did switch to Smashbox and started hitting these Peach ledge dashes every day, that would be something that would spur the community to action. But I do feel like, for better or for worse, I do feel like we're very reactive as a community, and PP, maybe you get the sense too. But I feel like someone needs to do the thing in tournament before the community's really like, oh, we got to do something about this. Like I feel like it always takes that one example of like, well, that guy's doing this and that's messed up. And we as a, I think, and this probably is not even unique to Smashers. I feel like this is probably a lot of video game communities and competitive communities where, a lot of things like this, I feel like a lot of the time things happen reactively or retroactively rather than preemptively. And if that's how it has to be, then maybe that's how it has to be. But, you know, I agree with you. I don't think there should be these huge discrepancies between the different rectangles. It would be nice if there was just a standardization. But you feel like if there's these nerfs in place, you feel like that it's pretty fair at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I'm not like complaining about like not having a pivot or a SCI lockout. Like I don't really feel like that like affects me at all. But it's just annoying where it's like, oh, if I just had this controller instead, I could do it. So that's kind of like frustrating. I know a lot of people are like talking about like the travel time nerf. And I feel like that's something like I wish was implemented like before I switched, because I feel like relearning muscle memory to account for travel time, I feel like that would be. I mean, I haven't tried any like travel time nerfs or anything like that. I know people are like talking about maybe developing some sort of thing like that.
Right.
But I feel like I wish that was like implemented from the get-go rather than like being something that like they put later on, because I feel like that would just like seriously like impact a lot of people. Like I know when people got like fobs and stuff like that, like I tried like ledge dashing on my friend's fob one time. I'm like, was this always this hard? But it's like it feels like you have to like do it faster on the fob. So with like a travel time nerf, I feel like you'd have to do stuff slower on the box. I definitely think that would like impact like a lot of players. So not really sure what like the best way to go about it is, because I think there's like a huge like time sink for like a lot of people at this point.
Yeah, I I don't know. I think that yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious where things end up going with regards to like the top players who are actually using the box. And you know, like I said, I feel like some of the reason that things are moving along so slowly is because there still isn't that much representation. You know, like Leffen was the best player that was picking up the box, you know, with the frame one a while back, and then he kind of switched back to controller, and looks like he's pretty much probably gonna stick with controller. It doesn't seem like he's really touched the box in a while. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope we get there eventually. But at the end of the day, I think I think you made the right call. I think if you mute all those phrases on Twitter, you're going to be a lot happier in the short term. So, pretty funny. Etost, anything in particular you wanted to dig into, or are you pretty satisfied with
let it stop.
I was gonna say, fun fact: Pipsqueak doesn't triple SDI or pivot up tilt on his frame 1 out of principle, rather than the actual fact that he can, even though like Box has the nerf for it.
Yeah.
Nothing else really. I think it was a pretty good discussion.
All right, thank you, Etost. We really appreciate the call in, having the topic happen, and you got any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, shout outs to Zuppy for winning 4M, the Minnesota Regional, after a 7-set losers run.
Oh, very nice.
Wow, who sent you to losers, Zuppy?
I got back throw down tilt suicide down aired by 100 grand.
Aha.
100 grand's the goat.
And then I had to reverse 3-0 him eventually in losers.
Makes sense.
Very strong.
Makes sense.
Also, shout out to Zeke, roommate at Double Down. I roomed with him at Double Down. Great guy. We love Zeke.
Yeah, we do love Zeke around here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go, Zeke.
All right. Thank you, Etost. Have a good rest of your day, gamer.
Thank you. You too.
Peace out, man.
All right. I think we got time for one, maybe two more callers, depending on speed here. But let's go ahead and bring in our next one.
Yeah.
We've got M-Wells56 calling in. What's up? Where are you calling in from? What's your question for us today, M-Wells?
What's up, guys? I'm calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor. Good place.
Nice.
Yep. All right. So this is relating to the Honers versus Innovators video that Core Gaming did a few months ago. It just kind of got me thinking. And I have like this thing. I'm a big sports fan, right? Not just Melee. And I've got this like theory that in like any given sport or competition, there's like two kinds of players. There's what I'm going to call naturals and then specialists. So the easiest way I can describe this is like, look at basketball. You know, the taller players are generally going to do better just, you know, because of the way the game is structured. And in the early days of the sport, like that's what happened. And then as you go on, there'll be somebody who hones some specific skill. The easiest example is 3-point shooting, right? And then time goes on even further, and then there will be some really tall dude who can also shoot the three really well.
Yeah.
And then the cycle will repeat itself. So I think this tracks in Melee in a couple of ways, and this kind of relates to one of the earlier questions with the triangle and counterpicking and all that. In the earlier days of Melee, I'm just going to talk about this one. I think it tracks in a couple ways. In the earlier days of Melee, the top players could pick most of the viable characters and still beat even other top players. And now I think but then for a while, everyone just kind of had their main, maybe a secondary. And now I feel like we're cycling back around with Leffen going Sheik. Mego's always kind of done the thing with Fox and Falco. Even Axe is thinking about picking up Fox. Obviously, there's Clup. I just wonder if you guys think that like this kind of paradigm tracks in Melee, or like what would you define as like a natural talent or like a specialist skill that people have in the sport in the game?
Oh, wow. I think the answer to this question has really changed over time. I think, PP, you should probably start this one off. Because I think that, I don't know, I sort of feel like the difference has been exacerbated in one way or the other over time.
I'm not sure exactly what a natural would be in this context, but I can talk about how we probably specialized in certain ways. Specializing would be, in this case, things like, I think people in current day specialize a lot more in hitting a lot of text, knowing a lot of ways to get out of things. That's what Zuppy was talking about changing recently, right? He was talking about, learning ways to mitigate so many things. But also, I think there is a bit of the other side of optimizing to hit more things despite all of that, and how do you develop things around that? That back and forth has always existed, but it feels a little bit like it's skewed in the defensive side's interest, and that's where the focus has been in specializing that recently. And so, it's interesting, right? Jmook comes up, and we talked about Jmook earlier, and we talked about, what he specialized in, how he was able to reversal, and then how he was able to tech chase and do something that people hadn't really been able to do with Sheik as well. And he was able to do those two things both well. But it was interesting, right? Because, I think the biggest thing, like we've talked, like people are talking about holding down back, when I was playing, and that was becoming more and more and more common. And that was something that, people did it to varying degrees. I think Armada had been, Peach is kind of forced into doing that for a while, but Armada had a head start on a lot of people with that and everything else. So you could say, characters and players gravitate to certain ways to play, to specialize in certain skills, to do certain things. You're more likely to expect Marth players to want to enjoy doing punish things, for example, or Falco players to want to do punish things and things like that. So, but it's interesting, right? Because if you're someone as a player that wants to do certain things, you'll be drawn to characters that are doing that. So there's an interesting kind of interplay that I think goes there, right? Like maybe, Jmook wouldn't have had as much interest in the game if he were, a Puff main, for example, right? Doesn't make use of his skills as much. But if he
doesn't get to do the things he wants to do,
right? But if he is a specialist in certain things, he's going to gravitate to Sheik. So that's kind of my point about specializing and how that relates to characters. And over time, I think I joke about this, but back in I think the first MLG era, the Golden Age, all that stuff. I do joke about mind games and all that stuff, but I do think there was such a heavy emphasis on PvP, outplaying, things like that, because there wasn't so much emphasis on tech skill. People still crouch canceled even back then, but it wasn't a science of at this particular percent, if you crouched, you could do this. There wasn't any of that. There was just, crouch cancel at lower percents and you can probably do this on this move. And, there was some of that. But, largely there was a lot of strategy and outplaying and giving yourself time to make reads. And I think there's something valuable in that even for players today. But I think, things have moved on and become much more optimized over time. And now we see, very heavy optimization, especially for, very specific punishes, and the right choice for the DI, and this is the mix-up you got to play. Like a lot of that stuff is very known, very aware, whereas it kind of wasn't. Things were a little more up in the air in the past, and I think there's still some of that, and it'll be different for different situations and characters and matchups, but there is more of that. And so, a Mango is someone that kind of has emerged and has been someone that's almost been a counterforce to a lot of that, where he's someone that specializes in exploring options and keeping things more open and
well, I think that to interject here, I think that Mango is a great example of what MWells means when he says like a natural, right?
Yeah, okay.
And when you talk about keeping things open, keeping, and that kind of, well, okay. I mean, what I think the classical opinion people have of Mango is, I think that that's what people assume a natural sort of looks like, is somebody who kind of pushes back against the those specializations that you're talking about, and basically keeps options open, as it were.
Sure. Well, yeah, I've talked for a little bit. I'm going to pass the ball. Zuppy, what do you think about this classification? What do you think about this in modern day?
I think like when it comes to something like the natural, me and my friends do this thing called teams Ironmans, and so we'll like randomize our characters and we have to win with like the team comp, and it's like random stages and whatnot. I feel like a lot of that is like natural because you're not exactly like specializing in your like Ness Donkey Kong team combo.
Yeah.
You're just like kind of have
you
to
just
like
gotta wing it
stuff out on the fly. And then I feel like regarding like singles and stuff like that, like I feel like the natural like is like what you kind of do in those like high pressure like tournament situations, your back's against the wall, like maybe crew battles or something like that. And then like I'd say like the specialist is like something you practiced like in your room a bunch, and it's just like, oh, like when like Zane dominates, for example, he's just winning everything through winners and no one's like really challenging him. Like I feel like that's like really definitely like the specialist kind of play style, because it's like all the set plays are like working and he doesn't really have to like switch up what he's like learned, and there's not like a panic button he has to like press yet. And then there's someone like Mango doing like the crazy losers run or whatever, and you're just like, there's no way he wins this game versus Hungry Box at SmashCon where he's like down 3 stocks on FD, then he somehow wins it. I feel like that's like kind of like the natural thing, because if you're in that spot, like you're probably, the game plan you thought was gonna work in the set probably wasn't working because you wouldn't be down that much, and so you kind of have to like dig deep there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this distinction was always interesting. And I think it's really interesting in Melee because like Melee's been out for so long. Like natural versus specialist. I think of another way I think of this dichotomy is what I call early meta versus late meta players. And this is a concept that kind of I think transcends individual games. So like what I mean by an early meta player, I think a great example of this that we see in a lot of platform fighters is Void. Now, Void is somebody who clearly can specialize. And I mean, obviously he's pushing, obviously he can do both, right? Like he's somebody we've seen with his like Sheik and like ult and Smash 4 and stuff. Like he like does these crazy, like really intricate combos where you feel like you're watching Melee. You know, it's like, oh my God, this guy's really labbed this stuff out to an insane degree. But, you know, Void is somebody where you watch him play a new platform fight or whatever, and he just, like, picks things up so fast, right? Like, he's always, like, week one of some new game, he's always going to be one of the guys you feel like is going to be running the show. You know what I mean? Like, we saw this in, I don't know, Nick All-Star was Multiverses.
Multiverses, yeah.
Yeah. Void's a natural, right? And then I think you've got people where, you know, they're not going to be... I've heard Mango also on his stream or on YouTube or whatever. He basically says, you know, someone's just a gamer versus somebody who's not a gamer, but they can, you know, so I would think of somebody like, I think a good example to me is somebody like SFAT. And SFAT is somebody where through most of his career in NorCal, he would be described as less talented in terms of raw talent than, let's say, somebody like PPU, who's like, you know, obviously they team together and stuff. But SFAT obviously overcame a lot of that just by working really hard and like really honing specific matchups and like and like really trying to imitate certain players to like kind of squeeze as much as he can out of his character by imitating these different play styles. And I think what's actually really cool about this is that actually as recently as this morning, coincidentally, I was watching a video from the FGC Translated YouTube channel. Shout outs to them, and it was basically Daigo from Street Fighter talking about one of his heroes when he first started playing Street Fighter way 20 years ago, back in the day in the arcades, which is this guy Tachikawa. And he was describing, and this was in Street Fighter 2 days. So this was like it was like the first fighting game, right? It was like 1992, 1993. And he was basically saying about this guy Tachikawa and his playstyle, like what made him good. Daigo was basically saying, well, back then, he was basically saying there were no specialists. He was saying nowadays, you know, you can take a specific aspect of the game and you can get very good at it. And, you know, you have training mode and you have these ways to get very good at specific slices of the game, specific aspects of the game, and really like refine it, right? And like you can turn that into an edge over your peers. Like you can get very good at specific mix-up situations, or like in Melee, maybe someone who's really good at reaction tech chasing, right? Or like a Wizzy. You think about a Wizzy in contrast to, you know, people don't really call Wizzy he's not really, I mean, he's well-rounded in that I think he's got good defense and good offense and all that, but I think people really think of Wizzy as like very good at specific things, right? And Daigo is basically saying that back in the day, you couldn't do that because all you had was arcade cabinets. There's no training mode. You couldn't really lab. And he was likening it to like, because Daigo's just a funny guy, and he was likening it to the dawn of mankind, where he was like, imagine back before mankind had weapons and back before mankind had language and could develop traps and could develop strategies in war. Well, who's going to win in a fight? It's just the biggest guy with the biggest muscles. And he was basically saying about this guy Tachikawa in the arcade, he's like, this guy was like the biggest caveman because he just had the best physical stats. Like he just had better reaction time and he just was better he was just a natural. Like he if you thought about it in terms of physicality, he was like the biggest dude at the gym, but basically, you know, in terms of the arcade, he was just a natural and he would just beat you and he was just better than you. And you couldn't, it was too early in the meta and too early in the culture to really have specialists exist to defeat the natural. And I think Melee's in a really fun spot because I think that as time has gone on, it's easier and easier to be a specialist now. You can find your thing that you're really good at, and if you get good enough at, let's say, reaction tech chasing, or if you get good enough at, maybe you're a Jigglypuff player and you get these crazy rest setups like solo battle, you can do that and you can have really crazy results. But I think the cool thing about Melee is that I think these people who are naturals, people like Mango who are less lab oriented, people like, I don't know, Santi, someone who comes up a lot, maybe Plop, people like that. We still have lots of examples of people that I think skew more towards the natural end of the spectrum even at the top level, even 20 years later. And that's kind of one of the reasons I think Melee is so cool, is that even though you can say to yourself, I want to specialize in this particular thing and get very, 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 very good at it and let that kind of carry me forward. The talented guys who are going to be, like Zuppy said, a little more, or like PP said, a little more flexible, a little more well-rounded or what have you, you can still succeed with that too. And I think it's cool that I feel like maybe if Melee was a worse game, eventually you have to be a specialist. Like it's just not enough to be talented anymore.
Right.
But I think it's so cool that 20 years later you can still that game sense can still take you so far.
Right.
That's kind of my take on it. And I just wanted to share this video that I watched with Daigo talking about it because I thought it was really funny that I watched this video literally this morning and then we got this question because it felt very on the nose.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I think great perspective. FGC fans, eat your heart out on that one as well. But yeah, I think we covered some good ground here. M. Wells, thank you so much for calling in here today. Any shout outs for us on your way out?
Shout outs to you guys. 50 episodes.
Hey,
5-0.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yep. Almost a full year.
Yes, sir. Well, hey, thank you so much, M. Wells. Have a good rest of your day, gamer.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
I think that's all the callers, unless we're getting one more caller in here. We've got.
I think we're
one
more in, and that's
all right. Let's do
it for us. Is what it looks like. And I cannot pronounce your name for the life of me. But welcome to the show. What's your name? Where are you calling in from?
I mean, I'm calling in from the Northeast, the Massachusetts region, that area. You can pronounce me a Uahwub or oregano, whatever's easier.
Oregano it is.
Alrighty. So my question for Radio Melee and also you, Zuppy, is with players like Amsa and Axe being so successful and people like Ringler and Mo doing well in their regions with Donkey Kong, could more characters become viable in the current meta? And if that's too general, been asked before, what defines viable in your opinion? And how do you specifically get over tournament nerves playing against a character that is seen as unviable like Zelda or Bowser? And additionally, with games like Project Plus and Hue Draw Remix becoming more prominent recently in modding scenes, could more viable characters hinder a game instead of helping it?
A lot of questions there. I think I will say Zuppy,
you can answer just one if you want to.
You know, I will say before you start, Zuppy, it's very interesting how we had the discussion on Marth Fox Sheik and how things were approaching parity. More even, but it's interesting. Do you think that's also happening with other characters?
Yeah, I think like more characters can definitely get pushed more. I'm not sure like exact specifics like of the intricacies of like the Dr. Mario Samus matchup or like whatever you matchup in like the mid tiers, but I think like
I think they're asking more about like can more characters do better versus the top tiers and the high tiers and go farther in brackets?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah. I remember there's like this VOD of SFAT and Cyrox playing at like this WIT weekly. It was after like one of those UGC tournaments, and Prince Abu and Hindog were commentating, and like
oh dear,
Prince Abu was just talking about how like she'll drop sausage with like Game & Watch is unpunishable, and like people just need to lab more, and like that's why Fox is the best, and like Bowser's actually really good, but he just hasn't been labbed enough. And like
we do love GG, we do love Bowser on GG here. So
and how like SK92 solved like the Luigi matchup with Falco and things like that. Like he just labbed like laser camping enough. I think like I think Doc's pretty underrated, honestly. Like he's like pretty good.
That's the cool kid opinion, by the way. That's the official Zane opinion. No, not literally cool kid. He's cool too. But that's Zane's opinion on the character because we did an episode of a Newlyweds game, and me and Zane had to answer the character we thought could be considered the most underrated, and Zane did say Doc. So
like there's like this Doc player Q question mark.
He was crazy.
He just beat like Ben and I think Reeve as well this weekend. Like,
oh wow!
And like people only talk about Franz, but like this guy and like Dewan's Doc, I guess too. But
Bro.
Yeah, Skullbro from EU is also
Yeah.
crazy. Like, yeah, honestly, on the box, up B cancel is like way easier than it was on controller. So, like, you know, with those controllers being more popularized, like, maybe we can see more Dr. Mario's. Like, he's really good on FD versus Spaceys. Like, he has 2 chain grabs. I remember Ryan Ford used Doc as like a counter pick versus
I remember
Axe
that.
and Drugged Fox on FD when they took him there, and like he won those games. So, and I also feel like some characters like Doc and Ganon may not necessarily like do better than like Samus or like Ice Climbers or something versus like the higher tier characters, but like I could see like Ganon winning the Ices matchup or like the Samus matchup potentially. Like even like I feel like Doc's like pretty good versus that like feel like Samus, Pikachu, Yoshi, and like Ice Climbers, people all kind of put like next to each other on tier list. Maybe not that exact order. But I feel like I could see Doc doing well versus all of them, and like Doc's not really in that conversation, being as good as them, because like I guess the perception is worse versus high tiers. But I don't think he has like any like insanely unwinnable matchups, whereas like Pikachu, like Ice Climbers, like I feel like that's just kind of like probably just not gonna happen. So it kind of depends what you value. Like, Pikachu definitely does better versus more characters, but Doc has like less roadblocks, I'd say. So
roadblocks is a good way to put it. I think that's kind of how it goes with these characters like Doc that have kill power. You know, like at the end of the day, Pikachu, sometimes you just run in a matchup where you can't get your KOs. And then Doc, like at the end of the day, you got down smash, you got forward air. At least you're gonna be able to take stocks. You got back air, that's true. Very true. Dude, Nair gets stronger. Dude,
he said
yesterday when we were like, oh man, I don't even want to spoil it. I would already spoil it. I'm not gonna spoil it. Something I am gonna spoil though. I'm not gonna get much into this question, because about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, we actually recorded another Golden Guardians roundtable that's gonna be hitting the YouTube channel with 5 prominent mid-tier mains, and we got really heavily into this exact question. Basically, character viability. What characters could become viable, like what that looks like, where these characters fit in the meta. It's probably the people you're expecting. Yeah, exactly. It's probably the people you're expecting. Like if you're thinking who are the best mid-tier players today, like it's probably everyone you're thinking pretty much. Or I should say a good chunk of them. So I'm just going to say be on the lookout for that. But the only thing I will comment on is one of the secondary things you asked, which was how do you get over tournament nerves playing against a character that's seen as unviable? The only thing I'm going to really chip in here is in tournament, you have to take it seriously. Like you can't tell yourself like, oh, I'm not going to try hard. I'm not going to camp or whatever because I'm fighting a low tier. Like tournament, you got to do what it takes. And a lot of the time, these characters that are seen as weaker or seen as unviable, they're only unviable because there's a specific strategy that beats them. And if you try to go too loosey-goosey, that's exactly what they want. They're going to get in on you. And a lot of the time, if you're playing, you know, let's say maybe you're a Spacey player or something, a lot of the time they're going to be able to actually zero to death you because some of these characters, like even Ness or even, like Roy with Don't Test Me, right? These characters can hit pretty hard, as it turns out, Game & Watch. So you don't want to think about it as, oh, this character's seen an unviable, I'm just supposed to win. You just got to do your job because it's tournament. That's the way to think about it.
Yeah.
I find one of the biggest things for people feeling angry or scared or whatever in tournament is they just don't know.
Yeah.
You just are like, you are unranked and you find Game & Watch and you're like, haha, funny, I'm quitting out and spamming lol, I am better than you.
Yeah.
And then you play Game & Watch in tournament and you can't quit out and you get down tilted and die and you're like,
well, you can.
You can,
yeah.
You can take that L and leave losers bracket early, and then you have to go tell all your friends that you did that, which is fun.
I mean, you can LRA start doesn't mean that you should.
Right.
Yeah, I think you just lose.
So, you know, I think knowledge being power, pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you raised a point about viability, and I think, you know, what is viable, and that would be a long question even in itself. But so I don't know but there are just a couple things to consider for the viewers at home, and those are things like, can top 8 at a major occasionally, can top 8 reliably, can win a major, whatever you think viable is, or you could just be like, move up the tier list, or crowd up that upper spot on mid tier that Zuppy was talking about earlier, right? Like whatever you think viable is, there are a lot of ways to interpret that. And so I don't really want to get into that with the time we got left, but I will say that it's interesting. One of your questions that I'm remembering, I'd like to pass this to Zuppy, and then we'll see where it goes and probably wrap there. But I'm curious about what we think about one of the questions being more viable characters equals potentially worse game, question mark. Because when I hear other Melee players respond to, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, like Mario was good and Mewtwo was good or whatever, like a lot of them go, no, it would suck. And so I see you both nodding. So I'd like to hear a little bit about, that, because I think there's often saying like, oh, there's an argument against Melee, like, oh, it's an unbalanced game, therefore bad, right? And so I'm curious to hear, Zuppy's take, and then, Toph, whatever you got to say on that one.
I think some characters, like the way they're currently being like represented, besides like Roy with like Zane, which like most people would just kind of lose to his Marth anyways, or like Ed's Ganon or something like that, where it's like you'll probably just lose to his Falcon if he decides to go that. Like I feel like a lot of these like lower tier or mid tier characters, like you can like get to a point where you learn the matchup and you like figure out what you need to do, and then you like stop needing to practice versus it for the most part, and you'll like scrape by in tournaments.
Yeah, but what if there were like 15 or 20 characters that you couldn't do that with, and you had to learn them, and the matchups were all super deep, just like all the high tier matchups are?
Dude, I feel like I like don't know how to play versus Falco if I don't play versus him for like 3 days. Like I don't want to practice like power shielding Doc's pills or something like that. Like
that's funny.
I'm good on that.
Like, that is the common top player take. Heck a Doc. Like okay, like it's funny because we're like, oh, who could go up Doc? But it's like, would we buff Doc? No.
No.
It is.
Dude,
it
Doc
is funny.
Is good, man.
Leave him alone. Yeah, maybe nerf him a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do I gotta think about him
for free? Like, I don't know.
Pretty cringe.
Man, why does that never get stronger the longer it's out?
God,
it's crazy.
Up B cancels, 2 chain grabs. Like, Fox literally can't recover versus Cape. Like, Doc, I don't think Fox beats Doc on FD. Like, at least not Q question mark.
Oh no. Well, we got takes coming out. Love that. Toph, you got anything to weigh in on here on the number of viable characters equals better game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, man. I think it's all about what you think viable means. And I think here's the reality, right? The reality is that 99% of people out there would be thrilled to be able to top 8 a major even once, right?
Yeah.
Like, me, I would be so happy to top 8 a major. I'm sure Zuppy would too, right?
That'd be tough, Toph, because you're commentating those.
Sure. But like literally, the average for the average person, the sort of result that I think you could achieve even with the low tier, at the end of the day, if your skill level's high enough, like again, and this is someone I bring up a lot, but Zane people were putting him top 20 during the pandemic with Don't Test Me with Roy, right? Top 20, top 30. And so I kind of think like, and this is something we talked about on the roundtable as well, but at the end of the day, no matter what character you play, you can probably get it done. And the thing that's holding you back is probably skill and mindset than anything else. Yeah. And I really do think that. I think that Melee's, I don't think it's the best balanced fighting game, but I think the balance is pretty damn good. And I definitely think that what people think is possible is skewed by the fact that they watch these think about Melee viewership. What gets the most viewership? Top 8 at majors. Okay. Well, you're not going to see too many of these low tiers in top 8s at majors, but on the flip side, there was probably, there could have been some crazy Game & Watch that got 17th or 13th at a tournament, and the majority of these people would never see that. Right. And I think that there's so many characters that can do amazing things in this game. And people have this misconception, I think, that you have to pick a top tier to get noticed. But I think that's simply not true. And I think that for the average person, if you really, really like playing a low tier, you can probably get really good. I mean, Aklo winning. Remember he won that freaking tournament. He beat J-Flex twice, and he beat Toussaint Swoop with all Link, winning the whole tournament. You know, like just because you're not seeing Link in top 8 of Genesis doesn't mean that you can't do crazy things with that character. So I think you know, the average person, they just got to ask themselves, what do I mean when I say viable? Because it's going to be a personal definition.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yep. Well said.
Thanks,
well
man.
said all around. And
appreciate the question.
Oregano. Thank you for your confusing name, but also
I'm
your
going to pronounce it the way
question.
that I'm going to pronounce it the way that I.
You did clutch it. You clutched that one. I couldn't do it though. Yeah. Thank you for calling in. You got any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, I got 3 shout outs. 1, Objection, good friend. 2, Optimism Champagne, the Donkey Kong. And 3, myself and all of you, because thank you so much for letting me on.
Appreciate that.
Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for calling in.
Hope all of you have a great day, or rest of the evening, whatever.
You do the same.
See ya.
See ya.
Wow.
All right. Well, we've gone through our callers. We've had our questions, and there's really only
wide
one
variety.
Thing.
Wide variety
at that. Zuppy brought the heaters. He brought the callers out today. That being said, only one thing left to do, Zuppy. Yeah. That's the community voice. All right. We told you in the beginning. We told you before we started, and we're telling you again now. You got a question you got to ask. The YouTube comments, they're going to respond. We're going to talk about it at the beginning of next week. Could be serious, could be funny. What's something only you can ask, or something you're curious about in the community?
Okay. So me and Toph kind of had this thing going on with like the concept of time traveling back to past eras of Melee.
And, great stream yesterday, yes.
We were discussing like if like a top 50 player like from 40 to 50 range could be number 1 in 2014. And so with that concept in mind, I want to know who's the worst player we could send in to win Genesis 1.
Beautiful question.
And
that's a great question.
Okay, so but it's like someone today, right?
Today. You said it
someone active today, all that stuff.
And they walk into they teleport, they get dropped right into Genesis as bracket is starting, as pools are starting, and they're in the bracket somehow.
All right, beautiful.
That's the worst player.
Do you have a take?
If they use like a Goom Wave or like whatever, like they bring all the things with them.
I think I think that should be considered, because the way I addressed this question yesterday was, if you bring a Goom Wave or Fob or something, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna check that shit. They're not gonna know. But if you bring a box, it's like a little too obvious, right? Like someone's gonna look at you and be like, "Well, what is that? What's going on there?" Right? Because you can hide it with a Goom. I mean, people aren't gonna know. You think people knew that was even a possibility back then? That's my take. Well, let's put it this way. As the YouTube commenter, as the answer to this question, you can consider it any way you want. Consider it any way you want. Boxes allowed,
maybe
whatever.
They're like, boxes are chill. They're like, oh well, it's weird, but like, who cares? You know, you're not gonna do well, and then you do
like
well.
The Resident Evil thing.
I mean, if someone comes from the future, like, I'm trying to think about it. I was at Genesis 1, and if some guy literally stepped off a time machine and was like, "I'm here from the future to win this. I was sent here to win this tournament because I'm considered to be the worst player that could still win Genesis 1," and he brought like his like futuristic box-looking device with him, I'd probably be like, yeah, I mean, it's like lame if we don't let you play. You're from the future. Like, come on, you brought this futuristic device. Probably everyone's using those in the future. What are we gonna do? Like, I don't know. Maybe they ran out of GameCube controllers in the future because that was a concern back then. I might let him play, PP. I might say, look, listen, this is interesting. I think you should get to play. I might lobby for that.
That's fair. I think the argument is interesting on that one. But what's the answer to the actual question?
Who's the worst player that you could send back to win Genesis 1?
Just snap thought, Zuppy. Who is it?
Oh man.
I think I feel like beating Mango's Puff and Armada's Peach would be like pretty hard still for like a lot of people.
It would.
For a good number of people.
I don't want to say something like too lax where it's like, oh yeah, this like top 200 player from like.
If you don't want to answer it, you feel free to cop out.
I think I'm confident in sending in Mott Money to win Genesis 1.
All right.
Yeah, that's
nice.
a confident one. I think Mom Money gets that.
got
I'm gonna
it.
say.
I feel like you could go even worse. I'm not saying Mott's bad.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
really
no,
good.
dude.
But
I think you could. I've watched some of those videos.
That's my answer. I think Mott Money's got this.
My answer is I'm gonna go with my boy. I'm gonna go with. I want to give an interesting answer. I'm gonna go with my boy. I'm gonna go with my boy Joey Donuts.
Joey Donuts?
I think Joey Donuts can do it, man. I think Joey Donuts is kind of nasty.
He's clean.
I think, dude, he's clean. I don't think he's clean. How's his puff matchup? It's not bad, right?
I don't think so.
I think Joey Donuts got this. 50-50 Joey Donuts. It's him and Manglin Grands, but
I kind of want to send in Fat Tino now, actually.
I was thinking Fat Tino. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it. Okay, I'll retroactively, because I think we were both thinking it. We're on that wavelength. Yeah, we're sending Fat Tino. I think Fat Tino can do it. I do think that. Yes. PB, what do you think? Your take is the most interesting because you actually were a top player. Maybe not Genesis.
I don't know what's happening.
I wasn't a super top player, but I would have made the Southern crew. That's why I would have went.
PB, can I ask you a question about the 2014 aspect of this? Do you because I always wonder what people like. Well, you were actually a top player in 2014.
I was actually a top player.
Do you have a sense of, you roughly knew what your skill level was like in 2014 and what people were doing, and you kind of know what people are up to today. Do you think
I don't have as good of an idea about today, admittedly, but I have some idea.
You have some idea. Do you think that an average, let's say Professor Pro, because he was ranked 50th. Granted, I think he's a little underranked, but do you think the Professor Pro would have beaten the gods if we send him from today back in the time machine to 2014 when you were competing?
It's weird.
Do you have a take?
It's a weird thing, because it's one of those things where you might beat one of them or a couple of them once, but then after that, I don't think so.
They'll adapt and they'll steal your techniques. Fast. Yeah, that was my take. It's I think you could sneak one in. I think you could sneak one tournament.
But I don't know if you get. I don't think you get all of them, even in one tournament, because some of them might watch and they'll be like, "Oh, okay." But again, it's not. People. I mean, the neutral was still pretty good back then. Good. It wasn't. Yeah. That's one of the things that I don't think has. I know people hold down a lot more now, and that's been one of the major changes. But I don't in terms of a lot of other stuff. I don't think it's starkly that different. But it really depends on which player you're talking about, and I think because again, there's only so many super top players, and which person you pick drastically almost changes this conversation, right? Because M2K's back then is still going to be really comfortable against Fox. They're holding down or not because he's going to run up grab or run up forward smash regardless, or he's going to whatever, right? So I do think it changes some, but that's a fun discussion that I need to play more people now and really think about that. But that's a fun question.
It's a good answer. Yeah. I think it's funny. It's cool coming from you because it's you would have you'd have more skin in the game, right? Because you'd be one of the people in theory that they'd have to beat. But anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it'd be a fun thing to do to play someone from the future. It's if I lost, I'd be like, all right, cool. Well, now I can learn all your stuff in the process. So that's okay. It wouldn't upset me.
I hope someone shows up in a time machine eventually and they're just like, yeah, we're from 2030.
I want it so bad.
They're a top 50.
2007.
Yeah. They're a top 50 player in 2050 and they show up. I'm like, all right, great. This is going to make everything so much easier.
And we just know.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in a little bit.
Well, me and Zuppy are sending Fat Tino back to Genesis 1. We'll report back next week to see how that match or how those matches go. Fat Tino, you got this, buddy. And I think that's about it for the program today. Let us know in the comments below what you think about the worst player we could send back to Genesis 1
who could take
win. I don't know why I almost said Genesis 2. Who could take the whole thing? And hey, if you have to rewatch some of those videos, winners semis, winners finals, grand finals, all those matches, maybe you could take yourself on a little bit of a history tour, watch some of those matches and see what you think compared to today's meta. But in the meantime, Zuppy, thank you so much for coming on. And PP, great episode as always, buddy. We'll see y'all next week. It's been another episode of Rated Melee. And Golden Guardian signing out.
Yes.